Welcome to episode 6 of 718 Sports. This is our second time doing this right now. We had to just redo the entire episode because Isaiah's internet is not the best in the world at Wells College, I suppose. However, today is going to be a very important podcast because we're going to be talking about March Madness, the most mad time of the year, the best time in sports, according to you, which, if you haven't seen our TikTok at 718 Sports, super entertaining TikTok video, really interesting take. And we're going to be talking about things such as sleeper teams, overrated teams, who I think is going to win the March Madness tourney, who you think is going to win the March Madness tourney, and it's going to be talking about some other stuff as well. But we're glad you're here with us. We're glad you're spending the day with us. We're really excited to get going. And first of all, what does March Madness mean to you?
For me, March Madness is one of the probably the happiest time of year. I play baseball, I play college baseball, I'm a big baseball guy, but March Madness is just such an awesome time for me. It brings like me and boys, like, instead of doing schoolwork, we watch TV, watch college basketball games all day. You go out to places, you go watch games, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of stress because if you ever want a perfect bracket, but I think college basketball, especially March Madness, is really fun. It's I think one of the most underrated events in all of sports. I think not a lot of people like give it its props. Everyone looks like the Super Bowl, NBA Finals, World Series, but March Madness itself is just an amazing event. It's an amazing month for sports, and it's really awesome. But what does it mean to you, Miles?
Yeah, I mean, the thing I love about March Madness are, the upsets. I think my favorite story still to this day is St. Peter's and their magical run in 2022 when, they defeated Purdue and then they went all the way to the Elite Eight. Like that is just unprecedented, unheard of, really insane. And you taking smelling salts right now? That's insane. Anyway, I really love the St. Peter's story and the stories like that, the stories of these kids who, are at a school that maybe not have the same resources as like a Kansas or a UNC or a Duke, but still come out victorious. And the teams that really make a name for themselves. FDU last year was a great example of that. A 16 beating a 1, UMBC beating Virginia, Furman beating Virginia last year. Things like that, where these small schools who really don't have a big name for themselves are now on national television competing for a national championship. And it's really cool to see those teams really win games and stuff. And like last year, San Diego State had a really important run, really big run. Not many people have heard of San Diego State, especially me. They're not one of the big dogs in the in the tournament leading up to that, at least. It's just a casual college basketball fan. But today we're going to be talking about who do we think is going to win March Madness, sleeper teams, some overrated teams. There's a few overrated teams in here. I'm not going to name them just yet, but I think you know where I'm going with some of these. But starting with you, I want to hear who you think is going to win March Madness. Who do you think is going to ultimately come out on top in April?
I mean, I said this before and I'll say it again because the recording got deleted, but I have Arizona winning the championship this year. Um, I believe they are the number one or the number two seed. Iowa State was actually the three, I believe, which is surprising a lot of people, but I really love Arizona. I love this season was a little up and down for them. They did have some big losses, especially against like Michigan State, but it was a close win. But they do have a lot of net wins. Caleb Love has fit in perfectly there after leaving UNC. He was a first round projected player 2 years ago, and now he's probably going to be a first round player again this year with the way he's playing with Arizona. I love their center. Getting his name right now, Omar Ballo. The pace of play for Arizona is really fun. They're a really exciting team to watch, and they have one of the easiest to like pass to the championship. The number one seed is North Carolina, who I have them playing in the Elite Eight. I'm pretty sure, yeah, it's the Elite Eight. And I mean, North Carolina is good, but Arizona has probably the most like that's probably the worst one seed right now, in my opinion. So I think Arizona has the easiest path to the national championship, and I think they're most likely to win that championship because they're not really playing that many people. Who are they playing? Let me go look right now. Arizona's first round matchup is Long Beach State. There is no doubt who's going to win that game. Then they play the winner of Dayton, Nevada. So, I mean, their first two games are going to be a little bit of a cakewalk, in my opinion. Then it always gets a little more complicated in the Sweet 16. But I really like that Arizona team. I really like what Caleb Love has brought to that team, especially with his experience. So I'm really excited to see what he does. But Miles, who do you have winning the national championship this year?
Yeah, so first of all, I really like your pick. I think Arizona is going to be a solid team, and I have someone coming from that side of the bracket to come out victorious as well. And obviously last year Arizona lost to Princeton in the first round, and usually that sets off alarms and sets off, oh, maybe they're going to lose, maybe they're going to be tough. This is going to be not a great year. But never forget, Virginia lost to UMBC, and then the next year they won the national championship. So there's really that bounce back stretches that happen oftentimes in sports and oftentimes in college basketball where you may be knocked down one year, but the next year, these powerhouse teams are going to be good. Obviously, there's exceptions such as Purdue. Um, However, and you're not going to like that I'm saying this, but I'm just going to say it anyway. I think UNC has a real shot of winning the championship. I have always liked UNC and the way they kind of like run their ball system, the way they run their offense, the way they run their defense. They are a really well coached team. And they went into Duke a few days ago, maybe a few weeks ago at this point, and played a really strong, impactful game in a very harsh Duke environment. And they swept Duke. And sure, they lost to Syracuse, and losses happen like that. But the fact that they're able to win those two big games against Duke consistently over and over and over again, and just things like they're well coached, the fact that they're well coached, and the fact that they've won national championships before in this kind of setting, you know, they have the guys to do it. They have the guys in the roster to make some momentum. And I understand that they lost the ACC to NC State, but let's be real. NC State had a ton of momentum going into it, a ton of momentum. Win, 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 boom, like you're done. And I'm not saying that North Carolina is going to have an easy way to the championship, but I feel really comfortable with the way they run their system in North Carolina and the way they do their things. That I think North Carolina has a real shot, and I think they're going to be ultimately the March Madness winner.
I mean, as I said, I think Arizona's winning, but I think you put a really good point in. Just North Carolina is a really, really great ball club. I mean, I saw them play against Syracuse, and it wasn't amazing, but RJ Davis is an absolute dog. He's an amazing player. And I mean, Caleb Love went to UNC, so UNC puts that talent every year. As you said, they have the experience, they have the strength of staff, and the depth of the bench is still great. So, I mean, they're gonna have a really hard time, I think, getting past teams like Arizona and their side of the bracket. But I mean, I think they're gonna play Michigan State second round, and that's gonna be if they win that game. If they lose, they're out. But if they win that game, they're looking to look really strong going into their Sweet 16 matchup. So I think a UNC championship, as you said, like wouldn't be crazy to say.
Definitely wouldn't be crazy. I think for me, I like the fact that they're just a winning culture and they win a lot, because let's look back the last two national championships, UConn and Kansas. Those are two teams that, have that experience, have that momentum, have that, knowledge of the game, have won championships before. These are programs that are historical. And I'm not saying the non-historical programs can't. I like Creighton could make some noise in the tournament for sure. And I have them going to the Final Four. Actually, I have them going to the final game against UNC.
I have in the finals too. I like that.
So, I think what's going on in Creighton is really cool as well. But I really like UNC and I really love what they have going for them. That being said, though, there are a ton of sleeper teams this year. And I think specifically, you know, in that first round, we're going to see a lot of upsets that I think some people aren't really going to, put out there. First of all, I just kind of mentioned them briefly, but NC State won the ACC tournament and they worked their tails off to get where they are now. Think about it. They had a losing record in the ACC conference this year, and they're an 11 seed. This is a team that is really strong, really powerful. The momentum is all in their hands, and completely in their hands. They are a strong powerhouse team. Let's see, they're playing Texas Tech, which, again, every team you play is going to be strong. Every team you play is going to be good. But Texas Tech is a team that I think is beatable, in my opinion. And I think NC State has that momentum. And momentum is a real thing in sports. It is a real thing, where they basically cruise their way to an ACC tournament and now gonna, play a team that's maybe a little concerned. You don't want to be that team playing NC State. You just don't want to be that team. And I
I
know you're
mean, you're
skipping
preaching to
ahead,
the choir
and
right
I
here. I love
appreciate it.
that take.
Yeah.
I love that take. You are making me so happy because I love NC State. They just cruise to the ACC tournament, as you said. They beat Louisville, Syracuse, Duke, I think Virginia in there too, and UNC in like 5 days. I saw a stat that was like they have more wins in like the Washington's arena than Washington is like not the Capitals. I'm tweaking. The Wizards do this entire season. So as you said, momentum's good. NC State has a lot of momentum on their side. Texas Tech isn't someone you should be really afraid of. I mean, it's college basketball, March Madness, so anything is possible. But I think you're right. I think you said it best. I don't know if you've seen DJ Burns play. I think he said he watched a lot of Hakeem Olajuwon growing up and
Yeah.
got the Zach Randolph body, and that man moves freaky. That man is a absolute baller. I love NC State. I believe I had them in the Elite Eight. I love NC State. I think you said everything beautifully. NC State is full of momentum, full of talent. They've proved they can beat big teams in big situations, and they're just a really fun team to watch too. Like, especially in the last week or so, really fun team to watch.
Yeah. So were you gonna say that NC State is gonna beat Texas Tech? Did you put that in your bracket as
A
well? Or
hundred percent. I have them in the Elite Eight. I think NC
wow.
State's
Oh
going to breeze
wow.
by.
See, that's bold.
I
I
have
did
them
not
beating.
have
Actually,
that at all. Yeah.
sorry. I have them. I do have them in the Elite Eight. I have them beating Kentucky in round two.
Wow. So that's something I don't have personally. I know momentum is a real thing, but Kentucky, they just had they're really gonna like be good this year, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
But hey,
I do like
you know,
Kentucky, but NC State's proved they can beat big teams in big spots. So Kentucky is also really young, which
mhm,
really matters. I mean, I think back to when Michigan was last good, which was the year that Zion Williamson was in March Madness, and that team was really good. That team was him, RJ, Cam Reddish, I believe was it Tice Young? I believe I'm maybe present bum. The name might be messed up, but that team was really young. But the experience showed. They lost to a really good Michigan State team who lost to a really good Texas Tech team that was really young. Or not really young, sorry, really experienced. Experience matters a lot in college basketball, especially in the tournament. We saw last year Marquise Noel, absolute baller. Keontae George, absolute baller. Those guys have been around for a couple of years. They know how it works. They know how systems work. And in the big shot, when they take that shot, they're calm, they're composed, which, I mean, for a lot of young guys, is going to be a big deal. So I like that Kentucky squad, but I think NC State just, they had the experience, they had the talent, and they've proved they can win those games.
So another team I want to bring up, and I have never been a huge Gonzaga guy in my life. Every time I feel like I pick Gonzaga, they always have some really disappointing season. So I'm going to go ahead and pick McNeese State to beat Gonzaga. This is a team that has a ton of momentum. They won their tournament. They're locked and loaded. The thing I liked about them is they're just a fun team to watch. All the players are really hype. They're having fun. And the thing about sports, which is really interesting, is when the players are having fun, a lot of times that means that they're going to be champions or going to win the big game. And I'm going to give an example of this. The 2019 Washington Nationals were that team. Do you remember when they did the race car stuff? And
Yeah.
that's World Series Game 7, dude. Like, that is like the game of the year. Like, you have to be perfect. And they're pretending to be race cars drivers and they're having fun and they're winning and they're beating the Houston Astros. It's the same vibe for McNeese. And Gonzaga, their pressure is really always on them. McNeese State has nothing to lose. If they get blown out, they get blown out, and that's that, whatever. Gonzaga, they got a lot to lose. If they lose this game, they're going to go home crying. It's going to be a disaster. We're looking at new pieces being shipped off, and we're going to look at a new change in direction with the program, even with coaching, I would say, I think could be really interesting. So I think Miss McNeese, the State Cowboys, have a real chance to make some momentum in the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. This has probably been one of the more down years for Gonzaga. They don't have guys like Chet or Jalen Suggs, but they still have Dusty Stromer, who I don't know if you know is an absolute stud freshman this year. Um, but yeah, like Ryan Nimhard, like they don't really have that many guys. So I think it is all in McNeese State of how much do you want. And as you said, it's like they have nothing to lose. They're going to play as hard as they can. I mean, I do have Gonzaga winning this game. I think they will pull it out just because it is Gonzaga. They're a very well coached team and a very good program. Um, but yeah, I think you said it best. I think it's a lot on McNeese State just to prove their point, but I would not be shocked if Gonzaga loses. And I actually want to bounce up a little bit.
Mhm.
My big sleeper team, which I don't know if really a sleeper, but my upset watch right now is Utah State. I think Utah State is going to beat
Mm,
TCU, then beat Purdue, and then beat Kansas. I have
got
Utah State going to the Elite Eight and then losing. I think Utah State's are really going to be a really great ball club. They're playing Indianapolis, so they're a little far from home, but I don't trust Purdue. I don't think TCU is all that strong. And I don't know if Kansas can be even Samford right now. So I have a lot of trust in Utah State being a big upset team. I know it's sort of out of the blue and very random, and I don't have a lot to back that up, but I just really like the way Utah State plays. I like the way that they're getting a little hot end of the year, and I also don't have confidence in a lot of other teams that are in their side of the bracket.
Absolutely, man. I think the one thing about March Madness is a lot of it you kind of just have to pick teams. And, you overthink it a lot, but let's be honest, this bracket is probably going to be a total bust and a total disaster given it a few days, based on, just how it goes every year for every single person across America. I'm looking at my bracket being like, it's perfect, everything's going to go well. Like there's a thought in my chest right now that's like, this is the bracket, but
Yeah.
everyone has that thought. You know what I mean? Like, we can't
hmm
predict the future. We can't predict what's going on. Nobody's going to predict, like, what if Longwood beats Houston? Like, that's going to mess everything up. You know what I mean? I think another sleeper team is Florida. And it, again, this is one of those more random, like, screw it kind of situations. I have Florida going all the way to the Final Four. Um, and they're gonna lose to Houston in the Final Four. But I really like the Florida Gators. What they've done, they've done me pretty well on during my tournaments in the past. So that's another just kind of like one of those like emotional picks, I would say. But I have Florida, the 7 seed, going all the way to the Final Four, which there's not a lot of reasoning behind it. A lot of it is just like an emotional, like, I know someone who goes to Florida, and I just want to, support them, and I we'll see what happens, and I hope it goes well for them. Um, but I think that's another team that is going to have a lot of fun around them, and they've done me well, pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, just to add on to that, another team with a lot of them that's a big sleeper for me. It's probably the biggest sleeper is Nebraska. I don't
Mm.
know if you've seen Nebraska play. They have a player by the name of, I'm gonna pronounce this right, Kelsey Tominaga, who is a baller. He is an absolute. His three-point jump shot is dirty. I think he dropped 30 on Michigan a couple weeks ago. He is. He's not even one of the best players in the Big Ten. He's the best player in his team, in my opinion. But they're a really good sleeper team for me. Really, it's a really fun. I just said it's a fun team. Lots of camaraderie there, and they're playing Texas A&M first round. I mean, started off like that'd be a big win for them. And then I'm not a huge Houston guy. I like Houston, but I think Nebraska can upset them. I don't think that. I think the Big Ten this year is a little lower in terms of like when Luca Garza was there, there was Michigan, Iowa, Ohio State, Michigan State. There was a lot of like strong teams, and Wisconsin's good this year, but the Big Ten has dropped off a little bit this year, and Nebraska really took a step up to solidify himself as a very strong team this year. And I mean, they're only an 8 seed. I would not be surprised if Nebraska makes a Cinderella run this year. I love that team. Really fun. They have experience, especially playing the Big Ten this year against Player of the Year Zach Edey, 1 seed Zach Edey. They played Michigan, who's a gritty team. Michigan State, who's a gritty team. Illinois, who's a 3 seed. Wisconsin, who's a 5 seed. They're playing a lot of great teams this year, and I really like Nebraska.
Yeah, I would you pick Nebraska over Houston?
I honestly don't remember who I picked, but honestly, it could go either way. If Nebraska wins that game and Houston wins that game, that's going to be a shootout,
Yeah,
especially with Imanaga.
yeah, and I think I like that kind of
Tomanaga.
yeah, I think I like that kind of thought behind it. I think the more exciting stuff is looking at the matchups that really could happen. Like I have Wisconsin beating Duke in the round of 32. I think that could be a really fun matchup to watch. You could also have NC State and Kentucky. You got Florida Marquette for me. North Carolina versus Mississippi State. I think another fun one. I've had Yale upsetting Auburn.
Wow.
So I have, well, I did something crazy on my other bracket. I'm in two brackets. This is my main bracket, just like, the one that is the most important to me and the one that I have the most pride in. And then I have another bracket that's just more for fun, for goofiness. And so I picked St. Peter's to win the national championship. Obviously, I don't think they're actually going to win the national championship, but if they win a few rounds, we're talking a whole different story. So I don't know. Just really for fun and really for giggles. But before we move on to teams that I think are overrated, I'm interested to hear who you have in the final four.
My final four right now, right today, I believe I can't tell you this for certain because I think I'm missing one team. Actually, let me check. It's Creighton,
Hmm.
it's UConn, it's Arizona, and I want to yeah, Creighton versus Duke and Arizona versus North Carolina. What about you?
Interesting. So I have UConn facing North Carolina, and I have North Carolina winning that game. And then I have Houston versus Creighton, and I have Creighton winning that game. So it's North Carolina versus Creighton in the championship game. And North Carolina, obviously, I said earlier, is going to win the Natty. So it's going to be North Carolina versus Creighton. I think Creighton's a really strong team this year. I think it's a team that's going to be fun to watch. I'm a little like all these games with like the teams that have like win the national championship, like those are the most stressful games to watch, the one that you bank everything on. Because I believe it was 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I bet Purdue was going to win the national championship, which, rookie mistake, but they lost
Hmm.
to North Texas State or something in the first round. They were like the 14 seed. Probably the most devastating day of my life. Just like, come on. Like this first day, it was like one of the first games, and I
Yeah,
was just like, well, there goes that. You had a similar situation last year with Furman in Virginia, which, he doesn't like to talk about, but it's still pretty
that was
fun.
a rough day. Yeah, I was still fresh, but
He threw it away. Hey, Wiki.
I mean, I also want to piggyback off that to go to our next segment of most overrated teams.
Yeah,
So I'm sorry I'm hopping in, but I really don't like Purdue. I really dislike Purdue. They've shown over the last couple years, as you just said, that they're not a tournament team. They're losing. They're much better than the teams they're playing, and they're losing. I have no confidence in this team. It was honestly hard for me to pick them winning their first game. I have no confidence in Purdue. I think they're wildly overrated. I do love Zach Edey. Luka Garza, just as good of a player in college, arguably better. He didn't win anything in the tournament. The tournament is when the dogs come out. I hate Michigan State with all my heart, but my friend makes a very good point to me. When comes March, Michigan State's a different team. Michigan State, there's a lot of teams like that. UNC's like that. I mean, Auburn's going to prove that they're like that. I could see Illinois being like that. So there's a lot of teams that really show out in March, and Purdue's not one of them. I don't have Purdue going winning more than 2 games.
Sam said that.
Sam did say that. He's a big Michigan State guy,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, it's true. Purdue's won a lot of games. They haven't really lost a lot, but I just have no faith in that team. That team is death, but I just have no faith when it comes down to the big shot. I have no trust. Who's gonna take
yeah.
it? Zach Edey, who's taking like 1-3 this whole year?
Hmm. Yeah, obviously he's probably the most dominant big man in, arguably Purdue history and even college basketball history if we're going a little crazy. I think another interesting team that I think is a little overrated. I'm actually going to say Michigan State. I didn't really think they deserve to be in the tournament based on their performance during the season. And the thing that frustrates me about Michigan State is like they just get picked every year just because they're Michigan State and what they've done in the past. And I think that's ridiculous. I think at a time you need to be like, look, you guys did not play well enough. You guys did not, win your, conference or whatever. It's not fair for you to be in a tournament, especially when there's a lot of teams that really deserve. Not saying Michigan State doesn't deserve. Every team in March Madness deserves to be there. They work hard. I'm not saying I'm not saying Michigan State does not work hard. What I am saying is that they don't deserve it as much as some of the other teams, I think. And it was a little disappointing to see them be selected. But that being said, it's not up to me. It's not up to, a lot of us. And there's a lot of teams that, wish could be in their spots. But I think kind of a bad choice there by the committee to pick them and or at least put them as high as they were. Like I don't see them as a 9 seed. Like that's just ridiculous. I see them maybe 10, 11 if we're going maybe 12, 13 if we're going, being honest and based off records. Teams like South Dakota State have a better record than Michigan State. And I understand they're playing in different conferences and the powerhouse of, Michigan State's conference, but I was just a little bit blown away of like, we're just going to give Michigan State the 9 because they're Michigan State. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. Michigan State's really had a very up and down year. They were very highly predicted this year, and they really haven't lived up to their expectations. But it's a weird mix of experience and inexperience. I don't know if you've seen Carr. Carr is an absolute dog for Michigan State. That boy gets up. I've never seen a man jump like he jumps, especially in college basketball. So there's a lot of excitement on Michigan State, but I'm also going to keep on the trend of overrated teams being in the Big Ten. I don't have faith in Illinois. I love the Big Ten. I'm wearing a Michigan shirt, but Illinois is not all that. They should not be a 3 seed. I have them losing to Auburn in 2 rounds.
See,
They
you
did
give
win the Big Ten.
you have more faith than me because I have them losing to BYU in the round of 32.
Yeah, I don't. There's not really any faith there. Illinois is a strong team. They have a lot of depth. They have guys, but I just can't see them in March. Like Ao DeSumo was so scary for Illinois, and again, he did nothing. You see teams. The best thing I can think of with comparison, like the best player in college basketball in that time in a national championship, was the Jalen Brunson Villanova year, and that was against Michigan, and Michigan locked up Jalen Brunson. Dante DiVincenzo dropped like
You
30.
always find a way to bring Michigan into these
I
conversations.
love. I mean, Michigan's. I mean, the Michigan basketball program is a whole different episode because they are going down the drain. But I love Big Ten basketball. It's so gritty. It shows if you win Big Ten basketball games, you will win games in the tournament, which Illinois has done. But they're really not all that. I mean, I can't see them. I believe they have Sky Clark now too. Um, I really can't see them doing much. As you said, I can see them losing to BYU. I can see them losing to Auburn. I could see them losing to Morehead State. Like
Wow.
they're a very overrated
Wow.
team. I
Hmm.
don't have trust in them at all.
Interesting. Interesting choice indeed. Um, and just out of curiosity, who's your biggest upset in the bracket? Like which team is it?
Hmm.
I'll go ahead first because I have it pulled
Yeah,
up.
please do. I have to look again. Yeah.
Um, you know, I said earlier that St. Peter's is my favorite story, and this is another one of those emotional picks. But I'm going to pick St. Peter's over Tennessee to win that first matchup. It's going to be a stressful night because it's a 9:20 start, and I'm going to have to stay up and I practice the next morning likely, but I'm still watching it. I'm still going to be stressing and worried about it. But I think St. Peter's is one of those teams with grit and passion. They have the people behind them. They have the right program in place. And they obviously don't have the same head coaches they had, the same team they had a few years ago, but you know, there's still trickles of that. And it's still, they had a really strong in their conference, beat Quinnipiac, beat some other teams. Marist is in their conference as well. I think St. Peter's is really a team to look out for in this tournament that, and I'm not, and it's unfair for me because Tennessee is a good team. But there's definitely a little bit of like trust that people have now with St. Peter's that they didn't have before. Because if St. Peter's never won in 2022 the way they did, people would just blow them off and say it's nothing. Um, but I think this is another one of those emotional picks that'll probably come bite me. Uh, but I want to be bold. It's March Madness and anything can happen. I could totally see St. Peter's I could see St. Peter's win the championship. You never know what's going to happen. Um, so yeah, that's the big one. That's the one where I have them losing to Texas in the next round. So it's even if they do mess it up, it's not that big of a deal, but it's still something to take note of.
I mean, I'm gonna piggyback off that, but going back to my first comment about NC State being a big team to watch out for, two other super hot teams to watch out for that are low ranked seeds are New Mexico versus Clemson. I have New Mexico winning that game. And then Grand Canyon versus St. Mary's. Grand Canyon's star player, his story is amazing. And they are one of the hottest teams in college basketball right now. I can see them upsetting St. Mary's and then upsetting Alabama. I can see Grand Canyon going another Cinderella run, win a couple games, make a lot of money for the school, but I like that Grand Canyon squad. They're really together. Again, it's like Lake McNeese State. Like, what do they have to lose? They're a 12 seed playing a St. Mary's 5 seed.
Yeah.
I could definitely see them going around. And then New Mexico is also hot. Fresh off a conference tournament win. New Mexico's going to be a really hard team to get by. And Clemson's not all that. Clemson's mid-tier ACC and a really weak ACC this year. So New Mexico beating Clemson and then going and beating Baylor isn't out of the ordinary. I believe I have it on my bracket because you got to predict some upsets. So
Yeah.
I mean, New Mexico and Grand Canyon are my two top upset teams.
I also put Grand Canyon over St. Mary's. So I think it's interesting because we're kind of picking a lot of the same teams and a lot of the same guys to win. That this was another one where, I just don't like St. Mary's in March Madness. They haven't really come through in the past, and I don't think they're going to come through again this season, which is a shame because, they have some good guys in their team. Um, Obviously, I could be wrong. They could win the Natty. You never know. 5 seed, made it to the championship last year. UConn won, and they were like the 4 seed, I believe. So who knows what's going to happen? I think, most people are going to pick UConn. I hate picking back to back. I don't really like feel comfortable doing that. The chances of that happening are less than I think people are putting it out to be. Um, but that being said, it's a really interesting time. It's a really unique time. And this is when everyone starts getting really into it and really cocky about it because everyone thinks they have the perfect bracket. Everyone thinks this is the way it's going to go. Um, and so what this results in is people are going to get their hearts broken on day one, which is normal, but it's part of the game. And I'm really excited because NBA basketball versus college basketball is a completely different game. Even though they might have the same rules, they might have time difference, but it's still basketball. But it's so different because the NBA, you can get away with a lot of hard fouls in college basketball. You can really play. They're putting their arms out. They're playing tight defense. They're locked in. They're not making them, take easy shots. Whereas the NBA, they kind of let Jalen Brunson step back three and like whatever. Like it's fine. I'm not saying they're not guarding Jalen Brunson. I'm just saying that, it's a lot harder in college basketball.
Yeah, I mean, I just said it's a lot harder. And with March Madness, anything is possible. We saw Furman upset Virginia. I want to talk to you about this after, but there's a lot of matchups on here that I'm really excited to see. A lot of scary matchups as like a bracket fan, but college basketball is all about madness and upsets. And I mean, there's a lot of teams that could win. As you said, Yale beating Auburn wouldn't be out of the ordinary. A team like Vermont beating Duke wouldn't be crazy. It would obviously be crazy, but it's March. Anything is possible. Like there's a stat, I forgot which analyst said it, but that Tom Izzo is at 65% win percentage when he's the lower seed. So
Wow.
it's like it's insane. Like as a lower seed, you're supposed to be not as predicted to win, and he's as a coach is much better as a lower seed. So I mean, I just love the way March is. I love how unexpected and crazy it is. And as you said, like the defense is crazy. These are college kids who may never play basketball again after this year. They give everything. They put everything on the floor. I mean, it's really exciting to watch. But I want to hop in and ask, what are your three most exciting first round games to watch?
Oh my God. I mean, they're all exciting to watch. I think an interesting one to watch is Mississippi State versus Michigan State. I think that's one that's really strong, really powerful, and I think could go either way. It's an early game. It's 12:15. Is that Thursday? That's a Thursday. Yes, that's the very first game. So we're opening up with a good one. Obviously, you got the first four stuff, but like for me, that's not really as important as the first round. I think another interesting one is going to be, let's see, think about this one for a second. I think the Nebraska Texas A&M game could be close. Obviously I know I picked the 8-9, whatever, but like those are the closest games. Those are the teams that, the bracket and the committee think that are going to be the toughest fights. And I think NC State, Texas Tech is going to be one of those games. I think it's going to be closer than many people think. I think NC State is going to come out victorious in that one as well. And then just an honorable mention, I think that Gonzaga McNeese is going to be a great game. Obviously, I have McNeese winning, but I think McNeese, even if they don't win, they're going to make it a lot closer than I think people are really anticipating.
I mean, I agree with your picks. I did have the Texas Tech NC State game as my number one most exciting game to watch because it's going to be an amazing game. It's going to really show who wants it more. But my next game is going to be the Purdue game because we have not seen Purdue produce in the tournament this year, last couple of years. They don't know their opponent just yet, but whoever it is, I don't know how much of a chance they're going to like pose a threat to them. I think if you're playing Purdue in the first round, you should be way more hungry than every other 16 seed because Purdue's the easiest one seed to beat in the tournament. So I'm really excited for that game. And the Drake Washington State game is going to be really, really fun to watch. I have Washington State going on a run. I think the pace of play is going to be really interesting. Both teams are very well coached with a lot of skilled players. So, and the next round game would probably be Iowa State. So that's going to be a really, really big game for everybody. And then I guess my honorable mention will be probably Kentucky Oakland. I really haven't seen a lot of Kentucky this year. Reed Shepherd's a dog. Rob Dillingham is a dog. But again, they're a young team. They're full of NBA guys, but they're very young. Calipari coaches a really good team, but if they can't beat Oakland, then there's no shot they can beat anybody else. So they have to really blow by Oakland to get to the next round. I believe they'll play the winner of Texas Tech, NC State. So, I mean, if you're NC State, you really got to blow out Texas Tech, and you got to hope that Kentucky plays a close one because if they do, NC State fans should have a lot of confidence going into that matchup.
I really like that Purdue pick, dude. I think that's one where all the eyes are going to be on Purdue. They're going to have a lot of haters coming their way. If they win the tournament, I think they're going to be gloating as they should. Shut down the media because everyone's kind of saying Purdue, don't bet Purdue, don't bet Purdue, don't bet Purdue. So I think those Purdue games are going to be really fun to watch because I think you're really going to see the pressure that Purdue is in. Again, they're a one seed. I'm not saying they're a bad one seed, but you know, I'm not saying they're a bad team, but historically they haven't been good the past few years. It's not been very great. So I think Purdue is one of those, the Boilermakers are one of those teams where, you know, people are going to be watching, people are going to be expecting them to lose. And when they do win these games, even this for 1-6-16-1 game, where, it could happen again. It happened last year with FDU. It's the second time it's ever happened in NCAA history. So I think this Purdue team is going to be really under a lot of pressure, really going to be dealing with a lot of it. And it's going to be must watch basketball for sure.
I mean, yeah, that's March, baby. Sorry. March Madness is just so fun. I'm so excited for Thursday and Friday. I mean, we got 1 month of amazing basketball all over the country. I am so sad because there's finally March Madness games happening in our home place in Brooklyn, and we can't be there to watch. So I'm so sad, but I'm super excited to see these teams compete.
Absolutely. And we do have about 2 minutes to go. And as we wrap this up, I want to talk to you a little bit different, still basketball, but not college basketball. Kyrie Irving, former Brooklyn Nets legend,
That is a bad
Celtics
man.
legend.
That is a bad man.
This guy
Holy.
with the one-handed turn, whoosh, boom, right in the net, buzzer beater against the defending champion in the Denver Nuggets. Such an exhilarating game, too. Just a fun, must-watch game. And the way it came down, do you see Luka's reaction at the end?
I mean, dude, I didn't see that, but all I know Luke is freaking out because the left hand lay, nothing but net for the win. That's, I mean, that's why they signed Kyrie. That's why they brought Kyrie in. I mean, I hope they make the playoffs. They're gonna be a really good team to watch in the playoffs. I love the Luka and Kyrie dynamic. I think they still need somebody else to be really a championship contender, but Kyrie is just, I don't know. I have no words. I'm speechless. You finish this up. I'm just astounded.
I think Kyrie, with that great buzzer beater. Luka's reaction, by the way, just for those of you watching and for you because you don't pay attention, he was he was literally just laughing. The dude was literally just covering his face in laughter and tears just because it was so funny. Because it was a shot that, when most coaches look at it, it's kind of a bad shot. Kind of just like what are you doing, dude? And only Kyrie Irving can really make that shot. So I think it's really interesting to see. I think it's a really interesting shot. And I was hearing something on TikTok that, the way he learned off to do these crazy trick shots off because like when he grew up, he had a basketball hoop with a broken backboard, so he had to learn how to like twist it and spin it and do all those really cool things. So I think, such an interesting aspect about it. But with that, that wraps up episode numero 6 of 718 Sports. Thank you guys for all tuning in. We're gonna have more clip. Yeah, IRP6 right here. That's exactly right. And we'll be back at you very shortly. Thank you guys for clicking in and have a wonderful night. Watch these games and
Peace. Everybody better watch Thursday and Friday. Everybody better watch. We'll check back in. Everybody better watch.
absolutely have a good night.